Hi, this is ESPN's Dave Lamont, and you're listening to the Sports Objective Podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
Welcome into the Sports Objective, a great show under the lights tonight. If you're watching live on Facebook and YouTube, we're going to have a lot of fun, I promise, as we get another day closer to college football. I can't wait. I was talking about that, guys, in a group text earlier today, about an hour or two ago, about how I'm missing out on our college football. And Bubba Rosenbaum, what's up, man?
Not a whole lot, Dave. Like you said, just counting down the days to the start of fall camp, and, we'll be getting all the information that's headed your way or in our way. But right now, just taking in a lot of the media days from around the country, Big 12, SEC, ACC, and I know the American will be having its media days a week from tomorrow.
That's right. And, hey, playing a former linebacker in the Logan era in the 1990s, we won a lot of football games. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from the great state of Connecticut, and that would be Matt Semenza. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Just back from a few days at the beach, so back at home, and I'm really excited to have Johnny on the show tonight because, as I mentioned, before the show to Johnny, I come from a Gator family, so ECU for me is obviously number one. But when I'm not watching the Pirates, I'm typically watching the Gators, and I hope this is a good year, JC, because, like I said, my wife is a Gator, and it makes my life better when they're good.
Happy life.
Yeah. Well, listen, for the last since 08, 09, it's probably been pretty rough for you there, Matt. I think the Gators, they really, the story with this program is very simple. They dropped the ball on facilities. They made some bad coaching hires, and the rest is history. I mean, you're looking at a program that was proud, won a couple under Urban, and then just literally fell through the basement. I mean, it's really amazing. But the good news for Florida is that they feel like they've got a guy now that they can really count on with Billy Napier and his organization and the things that he can bring to the table that maybe Florida was missing out on, which were many, going forward in the next 2 to 5 years, because it's going to take probably a couple of years to get through the portal, to get some recruits and get some talent up here.
Let me ask that question, JC, with the very fact of I'm not hating on Florida, so let me make that very clear. I'm not. There's other schools I don't like, but Florida I have no problems with. But I wanted to ask you, as far as the fan base is concerned, and I get it, multiple national championships under Spurrier, obviously, and then in the last decade or so, you have 2 more with Urban. But for me personally, what I'm worried about for Napier's sake, it's not that I don't think he's a quality coach. I'm just worried about the expectations. Will they give him the time? Will they be patient in Gator Nation to give him time to build his program? Because that's what I worry about, is they say, hey, well, he's not doing what Spurrier did in 1 or 2 years and what Urban did in a couple of years to win a national championship. That's what I'm worried about the most with his tenure at Florida.
Well, Dave, that's a very good question. And Gator fans by nature are not patient, but in all likelihood, and in a way, I kind of understand it when you consider who's been hired here. Between Will Muschamp, Charlie Weiss was running the program a little bit, Will Muschamp, then you had Jim McElwain, and now Dan Mullen, who's failed. And it's one of those things where fans are looking for a little bit of consistency and a little bit of to get some players in here. They're going to have some consistency. Scott Strickland has made it very clear that he's going to have Billy Napier here come hell or high water for the next 5 years minimum, and as long as Billy wants to be here. And what fans have to understand is that this process is going to take a little time. On the field, the talent level is just not there. The fella I do the podcast with, Shane Matthews, who was a Hall of Fame player here at Florida, has said repeatedly that the talent level is not where it needs to be to compete with the Georgias and the Alabamas and the teams in the SEC on a consistent basis. They can get hot and win a game or play well. You know, they lost by 2 to Alabama last year here at home, but they are not the kind of team with a 6-7 record from last year that has a lot of depth, and it's going to take a while to build that up.
Hey, JC, you talk about Billy Napier and the here and the now, and we'll dive deeper into that here in just a few minutes. But, you know, tell our viewers and listeners your association with the Gainesville area, and then also in the University of Florida.
So I was born and raised here in Gainesville. My whole family was Florida Gators, so that's why I had to leave. So I went to Alabama for 4 years in the early 80s. It was the time when Bear Bryant was finishing his career. I got there in 82, went to Alabama, which you talk about bad football with Ray Perkins. That was some bad football. And it got so bad that they even changed the color of the helmet, which is unimaginable. Something that you would never think of. They tried everything, and they were awful in the 80s. Peyton, Tennessee beat us all 4 years. And then shortly after that, Peyton beat us all 4 years. And so I finally decided, I'm going to get into television. That's what I graduated in communications, then came to the University of Florida, got some practical experience at Channel 5 here on campus, was immediately inserted as the sports director at Channel 5 on campus here at Florida, got my first job in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. My first interview was with Brett Favre, came back to Gainesville, became the sports director at the local ABC affiliate for 9 years in Gainesville, and that was during the time that Steve Spurrier was hired in the late 80s under Robert Bryant, and Delano Spargo was the AD, and 89, 90, and then did television locally with the ABC affiliate here in Gainesville for 10 years. So as the sports director, and also I started off as a weekend anchor. So that's where I got to know Florida sports. I was privileged enough to be during a time when Florida football was at its heyday, its glory years. 96, when they won the national championship in January against Florida State, was Spurrier's one and only championship, and I was there to see it. So it was a good time to be covering sports, even though my income and salary wasn't indicative of all of the excellence that was in Gainesville. It never is when you're starting off in this business in television, and so that's what I did for 10 years until I just got tired of it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
just to cut in really quick, I can relate to Ray Perkins was a coach of my New York Giants, I think right before the Alabama. So you had you had the lows of Alabama, but then you got the golden era of Florida football, right? So you had a little bit of both.
I did. And one of the perks of, making $21,000 a year as a sports anchor in Gainesville, Florida during the late 80s and early 90s was that I at least got to travel and follow the Gators on their, with their successful football seasons. And then, of course, Lon Kruger shows up in the early 90s and takes Florida to the Final Four, which, by the way, was in Charlotte at the Hive. And we got to cover basketball and the Final Four there. And that was one of the greatest things I'd ever done, because I was the only credentialed media member with the electronic television media in the state of Florida. So Sam Kuvaris in Jacksonville and all these guys in South Florida and Tampa, they all had to come and ask me for the video that I had to send in the truck to send. And everything that I showed on the 6 and 11 o'clock news on TV 20 in 1994 when the Gators were in the Final Four was the same video that you saw in every market that the sports departments used that was affiliated with ABC in that year. So I had some really lucky years. Got to go to the College World Series a couple times. Again, the Final Four, and then all the football with Spurrier was just. I was very fortunate there, but like I said, it was tough on the pork and beans. I mean, pork and beans, corn on the cob. I think I had, TV dinners were a big thing. They just didn't pay. So,
I understand that. Hey, JC, I've been in radio for 26 years, so you know exactly. I made it all the way up to my home market of the Raleigh-Durham area.
Yeah.
What's funny is when people think, well, if you are talented at what you do, that means that translates that you make a lot of money.
No.
I said radio and television, there's a lot of great people that are radio and television that are starving. Thankfully, I got smart and went into healthcare.
Yes.
So that's, you got to, Matt Semenza will know, he taught me that's where you got to go is where the money's at. Semenza. That's what I'm trying to go. One of these days I'll grow up and be like Matt Semenza. So
you never know. You never know, Dave.
Well, I just wasn't smart enough to know how to get another job in a bigger market. And I had this non-compete clause. But I'll tell you a funny story about Coach Spurrier. One time playing golf with him in St. Augustine at Marsh Creek. And Bobby Stoops was with us playing golf, and he had his assistant there, and I was there with Coach. And we're on 17, and I'm up $6 whole on Coach, which, by the way, is a lot of money to him on the golf course. And he says, Bobby, did you know old Corn Dog? Now, this was after I got done and moved into other business. But he said, you know, old Corn Dog, that last year he was over there at TV 20 there with us covering the Gators and covering me. You don't realize it. He only made $28,000 a year in his last year. Hell, didn't you make that in the first quarter against Iowa? No, actually, I think he said Kansas State. And Bobby, oh, well, yes, sir, Coach. I didn't know. And then I proceeded to hit my drive dead left into the swamp. And he won that $6 back, but he bought the beer anyway after the round. But, he's just – that guy is unbelievable. And he's 70 some odd, 75, 76, and just cranking right along here in Gainesville. So,
does he have a podcast? Because he should.
He does have he gets on with Shane at times with us. And he'll go on with Shane. And then he has this guy named Steve Russell who does who works for the College Station as a full-time employee, a W-2 employee, and he goes on weekly with Steve Russell to talk about football. But he's basically what they call now as an ambassador. So basically he's promoting Florida football and promoting that restaurant that has his name on it and doing quite well here in retirement after he left South Carolina.
Yeah, let's talk about that restaurant. I heard him talk about that on, I think it was on Full Ride on Sirius XM, but he was talking about that very thing with those guys. And it sounded like a really great restaurant. And, baby Bubba Simmons and I can drive down there to Gainesville.
I'll get you in. I'll get you in there. Freddie Weeby's waiting for you. He'd love to have you. One of the cool features of that restaurant, of course, it has all his memorabilia and all his stuff, the Heisman Trophy, the helmets. But one of the cool things is he's got his playbook wallpapered on the wall in the men's bathroom. So you could be sitting there taking a leak and looking up at the, at the plays that he would draw up. That's and cool. Shane would know everything, of course, that's on that wall. And it's his whole playbook that he had. He had some funny names for some of his plays, but there is a real Florida touch to that place. So if you're into Florida, whether you like them or not, you can get all you want coming down here to that place.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys, my family just had dinner there a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact, and had a great time. They had a blast, the kids and my wife.
So they were down here, huh? And
they were just down there. Yeah. We visit Gainesville quite a bit. Yeah, no doubt about
I was getting ready. That's funny you said that, Simmons. I forgot to text you about that place. I was going to tell you to take Chrissy there, and you've already been. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Too late.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, now Matt, have you seen the commercial with Coach Spurrier? It runs, pretty much every show on Pod Up, just talking about how it has Spurrier sitting there talking about booking a reservation. He said it's easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Well, and here's Vanderbilt. Clark Lee, didn't he say yesterday at Media Days that they're going to be the best program in the country? So just be careful, Coach. Clark Lee is coming. Clark Lee is coming, and Vanderbilt's coming. I don't know.
The Vandy hate's been thick here. Y'all have been pouring it on here lately.
Well, it's not that I hate them. It's just that, they get these millions of dollars, these tens of millions of dollars from this television contract. They're about to back into – you talk about something born on third base getting into this league. They're about to back into a $90 to $100 million deal when ESPN renews after the SEC contract's up in 24. And where do they put the money? It's not in the football facility that I can tell. Now, I think somebody said on Full Ride, Dave, you might know this, that they are going to now start investing in the football program. But you go to a Vanderbilt game, and it's a road game for the home team. It's a road game for the home team because everybody that goes to Nashville goes to because of Nashville, and their team's playing Vandy. Nobody on campus gives a damn about Vanderbilt football, and that's too bad. Clark Lee's got his work cut out for him. I don't know how.
Wow, you're right about that.
Hate was definitely not the right word, but they're definitely the odd duck of the SEC.
Like I said,
not even close.
They got lucky. They got that early scholarship into the league because really, what have they provided other than baseball? Now that's a good thing. I mean, they've done fantastic. One of the best programs in the
academic scores, Johnny.
Academics, that's a good point there, Dave. But
student athlete, fellas, it's all about the student athlete.
Right, the student athlete. Well, the student athlete knows that tutor pretty well, because that's about how it's going to be if these conferences, with all this traveling they're about to do. And you talk about the ACC with North Carolina and Duke, and of course Virginia, Thomas Jefferson School and all this, Wake Forest. These are great institutions, academic institutions, but the presidents are the ones who are making the call on this expansion. And, it just blows my mind that the Big Ten would get, you have to be part of this association. I'm kind of getting off track here, but UCLA and USC go to the Big Ten, and Stanford and Cal do not. So if it's about academics, it's not in that case.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Great point. No doubt about it. JC, we had a question from Johnny Gardner. Johnny, any Tom Petty stories?
Well, Tom Petty was a Gainesville high school student here in Gainesville in the 70s, and he left when he was, I think, 16 years old. He left while he was either a sophomore or junior, and became a musician. So he really didn't spend much time in Gainesville, but the university kind of adopted him as being one of the icons of the area, even though he really didn't spend hardly any time here after he basically became a 16-year-old, and he moved away. But they did a thing where in the fourth quarter, I don't think they're going to do this anymore, but the stadium would start blaring out this song, Don't Back Down, I won't back down song, right? And so everybody gets their phone and they get the lights on, and it's like, oh, here we go. We're going to do the Don't Back Down. They're all doing this in the stadium. It's one of those light things. It's really cool. And next thing you know, the Tom Petty is part of Gator football. But I don't know if they're going to continue that little tradition at the beginning of the fourth quarter. For some reason, I don't think they are. But he wasn't I didn't know him. I'm 57 years old, and I didn't really know. He was gone by the time I could even tell what music was. So
he's a great artist, huge fan of Petty, and hate that the fentanyl or what it was took him away from us, unfortunately, too early.
Yeah, it's awful. I think he was 65 years old, and that's just too young these days.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Johnny, so, we were kind of talking a little bit about annual salaries and whatnot, and just to segue off a little bit here, you got me thinking, Billy Napier, $7 million annual salary, fellas, not bad. Life is good in some ways, salary-wise, life is good for an SEC coach. Obviously, along with that, as Dave alluded to, come the expectations, the huge expectations. I mean, how do you feel so far that the Gainesville community is embracing Coach Napier? Are they happy with the hire for the most part?
Well, most of the former players that I know and talk to are very happy with him because of his organizational skills, the fact that he was an assistant under Nick Saban and recruited very well. One of the players he recruited was Amari Cooper from South Florida. He recruited Amari Cooper to come to Alabama. In fact, he called Amari Cooper to do a hype video for Florida. And Amari was happy to do that, even though he's an Alabama great. And so I think that is helping people kind of get used to the idea that this guy's going to work his tail off. He's going to be very successful on the recruiting trail and in the transfer portal, which is what he's going to have to do to rebuild this program, because that's what it needs, is rebuilding. He's about to open up a beautiful facility, multi-million-dollar facility, football-only facility here on campus. So he's going to have the benefit of that. There's going to be palm trees and waterfalls and slides and all kinds of crazy things. And hopefully this will be a guy that Florida won't have to pay off to leave. Florida had to pay Mullen $6 million to leave town. Florida had to pay Will Muschamp $8, $6, $7, whatever million to leave town. And that has just really rubbed people the wrong way, because they don't see their ticket prices falling. And so one of the things that fans want to see is some success, at least get to a respectability that brings some sort of respect back to the university football program. They've got the spring sports wrapped up. I mean, they're as good as anybody in the spring sports, but we all know that football butters the bread. It pays for everything. And basically Florida's got to be more successful on the football field. And Billy's going to be the guy that Scott Strickland chose to at least spend the next 3 to 5 years trying to make that happen.
And Johnny, one of the things too that, we're talking about SEC, but the SEC is so good. But one of the things I see is that pretty much we were not hating on Vandy, but pretty much everybody's improved. But just about every team is improved, especially when you look at the division you guys are in with the SEC East. Right. I mean, when you have a Shane Beamer, I really like him. In fact, he was up for he wanted the East Carolina job in 2016. And unfortunately, we didn't give him. We made a bad coach. Speaking of bad coaching hires and bad hires, don't get me started about East Carolina. We have that in common, Johnny. But Yeah, but as far as that goes, I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing. With you were talking about facilities too. What would it take for Florida? I hear that all the time, including Matt's told us. What does it take for Florida to get to that level where you guys would say, okay, now our facilities are way up there?
This is a talent acquisition business, and that's what Florida has to do: is find the talent, keep the good ones in state that are going to Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia. Keep those players in South Florida from all signing with Mario Cristobal. They have to keep players in the state. They can't let these kids leave. It's going to start with that. What Billy Napier brings is a process that is tried and true and proven with the Nick Saban dynasty. And basically, he's the guy that has not, he's not coached at this level yet, but he's been very successful. 4 years at Louisiana was very well received, and he did very well. He had some upset wins. I think they beat Iowa State, in fact, 1 year to open the season. So, he's got some transfers coming from Louisiana, a big offensive lineman that's coming to help Florida. He's got a running back coming from Louisiana that was better than anybody they had on the roster last year. So it's about talent. Billy knows what type of talent is required in this league because he recruited in this league. And so I think that is part of the reason why he got the gig. And, he's going to hopefully be given the time and the fans. If they go 7-5, I'd take that right now. Right now, I'd take 7-5 for Florida. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. But when you start off with Utah, who could be one of the top 5 teams in the country, I mean, it's unbelievable. Cam Rising, Kyle, the coach, Kyle, what the hell?
Whittingham.
Kyle Whittingham.
Kyle Whittingham. These are great people and great players. They won the Pac-12 last year. This is a tough game to open your debut, your tenure with against a team like that. And then the following week, you get a very impressive Kentucky team coming down with an experienced quarterback, a massive offensive line, running backs coming out the woodwork, and Mark Stoops, who everybody loves now. Those are the first 2 games that he gets to debut his new deal.
Wow.
And so that's tough. And the schedule is not very conducive, in my mind, to seeing a 9-3 team. I just don't see that. But if they can do 7-5, fans better be happy with that, because that would be great.
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's funny today. Bubba just shared a clip with us. The Raleigh media has already pretty much given the win. We play our rival NC State on Labor Day, and they're already saying like how they're just going to take it out on East Carolina. And if you know anything about that rivalry, you better you don't give bulletin board material. I know that was a member of the media. It was not the coaches with Dave Dorn and company, but I was like, wow, are you really doing that when you know that there's going to be 51,000 people? Yeah. That's the biggest crowd we've had, guys, in probably 6-7 years, maybe longer, because of how bad the football program has been. And for them to do that, that's what makes Johnny, that's what makes our team and our program so great. We have the chip on our shoulder. We always beat teams we should never beat. And we're with Mike Houston, our coach. We're very happy with him and where he's taking the program.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. I want to learn a little bit about this, because I remember East Carolina. David Garrard, I think, was the quarterback, and he became a Jacksonville Jaguar, and I thought did quite well, all things considered. But at East Carolina in that conference, which I don't think or know much about the future of that conference, with 4 teams leaving next year, I guess. But who is East Carolina's primary rival in the American? And with NC State being in the ACC, I guess you would consider that their biggest in-state rival. Is that how it works?
That's correct. I mean, it always goes back.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's one of the issues that we have with the conference is there's a lot of teams that if we were not in the conference, we probably wouldn't play them. Is that a fair assessment, guys? I mean, there are a lot of teams that we played non-conference at ACC. A lot of the teams now that are in the Sun Belt, the Fun Belt, if you will, we would play a lot of those teams. And even a team like West Virginia, we have rivalries with them. And a lot of the teams in the Northeast with Matt, like Pitt, Syracuse, back in the independent days when Matt was playing, a lot of those teams we would be playing. But now, as far as the AAC is concerned, we're happy with certainly we have a better television contract than most of the group of 5, if not all. And that's the only thing is that if you take away the television contract, I think a lot of fans would rather be in the Sun Belt.
Well, what will the team do when these 4 teams leave that conference? What will happen to the conference, and how's East Carolina going to financially be able to, keep up without a conference intact that had Cincinnati, Houston, Central Florida in it already? What's going to happen?
Now, Johnny, as far as going back to your question regarding the opponent and the rival,
No.
very quickly on that, obviously you have UCF moving on. They kind of been a rival. You have Memphis staying, so I think Memphis, that series goes back a long time, back to the Conference USA days and even the independent days. So I think that's a game that you would probably consider, a bigger matchup, not necessarily so much a rival. So that's one thing that you're starved for in this league because of the way it's constructed, and to have those rivalry matchups. And
Navy is another one.
Navy, but what happens to the team? What happens when those teams leave to the
Right.
television deal? Like, where are the grant of rights going from there, and how will East Carolina be able to, find a financial deal that's suitable to keep the program healthy?
You have $7 million, right around $7 million in the current TV deal, and it's going to remain there even when UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati move on to the Big 12. And then you have coming in, the likes. You have North Texas and FAU, UTSA.
Okay.
So there's definitely. I know UTSA had a good season a year ago, but there's definitely some drop off there. To your point, and that's something that a lot of East Carolina fans are talking about. As this conference, the new American, if you will, when things go on, will it remain at 7 million or will it drop down in the Sun Belt? In my opinion, they're going to have a steadily improving product, and they already have a pretty good product as it is now. So maybe you have a discrepancy there where it's not extreme enough to warrant East Carolina staying in the American and maybe moving to the Sun Belt if something else better doesn't arise.
Okay. Well, is Mike Oresco still the commissioner of the American?
He is.
Yeah.
I think he's done a great job with what he's had to work with. I think the football is vastly improved from where it was before, and certainly, revenue is important. It's very important, and hopefully East Carolina can find that measure, that happy balance.
Yeah.
JC, think about Matt's favorite team. I can't believe he didn't bring up Charlotte. That's his favorite team, Johnny.
Oh God. So Johnny,
The 49ers.
I despise the fact. I'll be very honest, brutally honest. I despise the fact that we're now in a conference with Charlotte. It really bothers me. That's a team. When you look at college football and these TV deals, they have no business. And I'm not saying we're Alabama by any stretch, but we have a history. They are just benefit from being in a market, and because they're in Charlotte, they're given opportunities, and it just bothers me. It's just one of these fluky 2022 college football things where the market can dictate the conference and the revenue.
Like you're saying, Matt, you have Will Healy, tremendous coach, and he's done a good job there. But you have a 15,000 seat stadium, and they had an ACC team, and whether it's Duke or whoever, but they had an ACC team playing at their stadium for the first time on campus, and they still had 2,000 empty seats. And when it seats 15, that just doesn't stack up to some of the things that you've heard from that fan base.
And it's a commuter school. It's a school that Johnny, Bubba helped me out, and maybe Matt, y'all can remember. Was it 2009? I mean, it hasn't been that long. They haven't been playing football that long. And that's what bothers us. Johnny, our football program started in 1932, not 2009.
Well, now, and you also have to deal with those guys up in Conway. I mean, the Coastal Carolina team gets a lot of press and gets a lot of attention, it seems like. And I mean, that's a relatively new program as well, I would think. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Didn't they do game day there or something? Didn't that happen? Didn't something happen where they were playing against?
I think you're referring to the game against BYU.
Yes.
Because they had a last minute cancellation, and then BYU in the matter of a day or two, agreed to fly across the country and put their perfect record on the line to play in Conway.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
And that was a tremendous ball game.
I don't know where that is relative to Greenville. It can't be that far, but
it's about 4 hours. 4 hours.
Yeah.
But
Then
I'll
I'll
tell you,
hop
fellas,
back.
just one thing I wanted to mention when you just talk about these different things. I mean, you see the disparity in college football. So get back to Napier here, $7 million a year salary. That's
Yeah.
our TV deal.
That's
I
right.
mean, that's our TV deal. So you like when you start to really put it on paper and look at the numbers, you say, wow, like how in the world, right? Can you compete financially? And it's just one of those interesting things. But I wanted to jump it around a little bit here. I wanted to make one more point on Napier, fellows.
Sure.
Overall record 40-12. Very impressive. 2 Sun Belt championships. That is a tough conference.
I agree.
That is a tough conference. And you know what? You know what I really like, JC? He talks a lot about the offensive line. I read somewhere that he actually hired 2 offensive line coaches because he's so focused on rebuilding it.
He told the athletic director he wanted to have 100 people on his staff completely with, that goes back from the guy who ties the shoes to the nutritionists to the trainers. I mean, it is an army of people and this is coming from the Saban doctrine. Okay. This is how they do it. And you have to have money to do something like this. And it gives you that embedded advantage that it's just so hard to compete with if you're not part of that big TV revenue stream that these conference television deals pay out. And the Pac-12 is seeing that right now with the exodus of those 2 schools in Los Angeles. So I don't know. Billy is going to have everything he needs to win down here. And really, if the fans, if they can give him a year or two, get some players out of the portal, maybe pull off a big win this upcoming season against somebody they're underdogs against. Anthony Richardson stays healthy. Maybe things can turn around for Florida. I just know that the depth is not there yet, and they've got a lot of building to do.
Now, JC, branching out within the SEC East, we've talked about the Gators. You've talked about the tremendous job that Stoops has done up in Lexington. Seems as though, and it's small sample size, but Josh Heupel has things headed in the right direction in Knoxville.
He was at Spurrier's restaurant a few months ago. Coach had he made up some sort of award for a coach. It was just another reason to get guys to come down and celebrate. But Josh was given the award from Coach Spurrier, his first annual. I can't remember exactly what the award was, but Josh was down here, and I thought Tennessee was a very good story last year. And Heupel, coming from UCF, where he was very successful, as I'm sure you guys are well aware of, and being offensive minded, the Oklahoma Sooner that he is. I think it's just a matter of time. They get it going at Rocky Top, then that's a program that has been dormant for 20 some odd years. If it gets cranking, then that's just going to make the entire league even that much more tougher. And Tennessee is one of those programs that you get the Vol Navy going, get them out of the doldrums, get them out of hibernation, and they will be everywhere in America. You'll see them everywhere. And it just hasn't happened yet. But I thought Danny White did a great job hiring him and getting him to come up from UCF. I thought it was a no-brainer. I was curious that he might go to Oklahoma once Lincoln left, but he committed and stayed with Tennessee. It's a great program. If you've ever been to Neyland Stadium, there's not a stadium. I've been to every stadium in the SEC, even the refurbished ones, with the exception of Missouri. That is the loudest stadium I have ever been in, and that includes the Swamp, Tiger Stadium, Bryant-Denny, and Auburn, because it is literally right on top of you. If you've ever been to Neyland Stadium, you've got about 10 yards from the back of the sideline to row 1. It goes straight up, and that band is playing Rocky Top if they're winning all game long. First down, let's go Rocky Top. And then you start singing it, and you start thinking about it, and you don't even pay attention to what's going on. And Tennessee, if they can get it going, I'm telling you guys, watch out for the Big Orange this year. If he gets Hooker, if Hooker is healthy, they're going to be a force in the East. But
now, JC, Matt, isn't that a picture kneeling on the wall behind you?
Yeah, how about that, fellas? Right behind you there.
Matt played there in 95.
Labor Day 95.
Yeah,
sophomore season, Matt.
It was, yeah. As a matter of fact, Peyton Manning was the quarterback, and I'll tell you, I had an absolute blast. What a great place to play! I totally agree with you. It's just an awesome atmosphere to the point where I have so much respect for it. I actually hung the picture on my wall as a little decoration piece. Yeah, I just love it.
How did you do in that game? What happened?
But I guarantee Bubba remembers the score better than I do.
27-7. It was a game where the Pirates moved the ball between the 20s and didn't cash in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, and that was when Tennessee was respectable and actually pretty good. So
Yeah, we had the football was really big in the 90s. If you remember the Peach Bowl, Liberty Bowls, we have a lot of those.
Hey, listen, I even remember when Greenville was flooded and
99.
during the hurricane. And I remembered that because I saw pictures. I said, how are they going to get out of this? And man, that city popped back like it was like it's done it before. I mean, it was dreadful seeing that stadium. I covered Southern Mississippi when Brett Favre played for them in the late 80s, and East Carolina was on Southern Miss's schedule.
Yep.
And Southern Miss, the Golden Eagles played East Carolina in that year I was there working at the CBS affiliate in Hattiesburg, and that was one of the better games that Southern played that year. I think they won all their games though. So Southern won that game, but East Carolina was on the schedule. I do remember the Pirates, absolutely.
Yeah, Southern Miss was a nemesis to East Carolina down through the years.
They were a pain in the ass. I mean, they were an absolute pain in the ass. And that team with Brett Favre, I mean, they gave Auburn trouble. They gave FSU headaches. They won this. The year I was there, they had 4 games at Roberts Stadium, and it downpoured every single game they played. And I think East Carolina came to town. I think they did. Frank Beamer came to town. Virginia Tech was on the schedule that year. And Southern Miss went 10-0-1, I think. So
I want to say it was that 89 or 90 season where Southern Miss beat Florida State, was in the season opener in Jacksonville.
Yep, was there. Covered it. Yep.
I'll tell you, talk about stadiums and whatnot, fellas. That's an interesting. Roberts Stadium is interesting because the way it's set up, the bleachers are literally about 5 yards behind the bench, and they're right on you. They're right on, and they'll let you have it. I mean, they'll let you have it.
So you were talking about Neyland Stadium. What about as far as the SEC's concerned? I know you said you haven't been to Missouri, rather.
Right.
What's your least favorite stadium in SEC?
Well, I truly dislike Auburn. Just about everything about Auburn. I cannot take Auburn. My sister-in-law's an Auburn Tiger. It's just they are intolerable and they're insufferable. And I'll tell you, Jordan Hare is a tough-ass place to play. Before Spurrier came, Florida could not beat them there. One year, Spurrier had them down 3 touchdowns, and Reggie Slack and the boys came back to beat Danny Werfel in the second half. And it was so loud and annoying, and I'm covering the game. I had a V-neck sweater. I looked like an idiot. And after the game, the toilet rolls went flying through the air. So Auburn is certainly my least favorite, but in just terms of getting there or being part of the atmosphere and the environment, it is a difficult day in Baton Rouge because every game's a night game. You are there waiting and waiting and waiting. There's no easy way in and out. The traffic is horrendous. It's almost as bad as Tuscaloosa, which is probably the worst. And you're essentially putting 100,000 seat stadiums in towns that may have 2 times that much than the entire population, and the roads are just not ready for it. So it's miserable getting in and out of Baton Rouge. It is absolutely miserable, but you have to experience the atmosphere once in your life if you do. But that's probably my least favorite logistically, but Auburn's certainly my least favorite.
We played
Dave, very quickly. I probably shouldn't even mention this on the air, but I think after what JC just said, maybe he was accomplice to Harvey Updike with Toomer's Corner.
No. Remember, Harvey lived near Auburn. He lived in, that's what, by the way, Paul Feinbaum was made because of Nick Saban. That show he had in Birmingham got good when Alabama got good. And his show became a Jerry Springer type of clash between Alabama fans and Auburn fans on the phone. And when he had Harvey Updike on the phone, literally telling the world that he done poison the trees, that was one of the biggest moments in his career radio-wise that catapulted him to nationwide status. And then, of course, with the way the show went with his callers, it just got more and more popular. But he can thank Nick Saban for everything he's got in terms of the notoriety, being, in my opinion anyway, being as famous as he is and the callers that he had. Harvey Updike was a really messed up guy. And, to kill those trees. There's a couple trees out here on this golf course I wouldn't mind putting a copper nail into. That is for sure. And I could use Harvey on some of these holes over here because of how bad these oak trees hang over the fairways. But at any rate, he was a lunatic, and I did not like what happened there. And that was not indicative of what Alabama fans were about.
No. There's always as one of our former chancellors said, the lunatic fringe.
No.
He definitely fits that. I think I'm the only one on the panel here on the show that loves Paul Feinbaum. I think
I love it. No, I love it. I love him, Dave. Don't get me wrong, but I truly believe if Nick Saban didn't go to Alabama, his show would not have been as popular or as famous, in my opinion, because Alabama just would have continued to suck. I mean, remember, Mike Shula was the coach that he replaced, and they just had come off of probation, and they went 7-6 in his first year, and they beat Colorado in a bowl game. They were 6-6. They lost to Louisiana Monroe in that season, his first season. So it took what 2 years? They lost to Florida in the 08.
Matt, you know about Alabama? We lost the game we shouldn't have lost. What was that, guys? In '98?
Believe
Was that-
so.
Yes. Yeah, that was 98.
Yeah, that was.
Bama beat us. I think it was 23-22, something like that.
Alabama football is miserable, and Duvos was awful, and the Mike Price fiasco, and it took a while. It's not always been great, believe it or not. I know this is hard to believe, but before Saban, there were some real lean years for Alabama football.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
It's when Sean Alexander was running back that year.
He was great. He was great.
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, I want to ask you this about one question we hear all the time. When the time comes when Saban retires, do you see a Dabo Swinney going to Alabama? Because, I mean, he's got it made in Clemson. Like, I still have a statue there for him. I mean, before him, it was kind of like Spurrier before Urban Meyer. It's like Danny Ford.
Yeah.
I was so sick and tired, and I'm not anti-Danny Ford, but I was so sick and tired of Clemson fans talking about Danny Ford. They hadn't won a title since, what was it, 81?
That's right. Yeah.
I was like 8 years old when they won a title.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, do you after Saban, who's going to replace him?
Well, I think Nick's going to have somebody in mind when he's getting ready. And I don't know who that might be, but I would say you could throw a Dabo in there, but I think you could throw, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I think Lane Kiffin really enjoyed his time in Tuscaloosa.
I knew you were going to say that.
Lane Kiffin, as well as Steve Sarkisian, have both credited Nick Saban, for resuscitating their dead careers. And really, it was kind of like going to the revival pool where he was baptized back and coming back into the forefront of coaching. And without Nick Saban, Lane was dropped off on the bus. I mean, they didn't even let him get back to his office to get his stuff. They sent it to him. And Sark was, had his problems. But Saban has resuscitated many careers. And I think Lane Kiffin is a guy that really enjoyed his time at Alabama and, won a championship that 1 year. So could have won two. And certainly was a big – Blake Sims will tell you that Lane Kiffin was the reason why he leads the school in passing yardage, if you can believe that.
Wow.
So, yeah, Blake Sims. So that was a guy who was a basic walk-on, didn't play for 4 years, and then had a fifth year of eligibility, became the quarterback, and threw for thousands of yards. And it was because of Lane Kiffin. I mean, the things they did to teams on the field, just nobody saw that coming with Blake Sims. And then, of course, they lost to Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl when Ohio State won it with Cardale Jones because Lane forgot to give the damn ball to Derrick Henry because nobody could tackle Derrick Henry. I'm screaming in the Superdome, give it to Derrick Henry. They can't stop Derrick Henry. And Lane just decided he was going to throw for the rest of the game, and that was kind of a bad day.
Now, JC, obviously, Bama and Georgia have been the standard, but you mentioned Lane Kiffin doing a tremendous job in Oxford. So, give us your thoughts. Not necessarily every team, but just some of those programs in the SEC West. You obviously had the big to-do, the little spoil, if you will, between Jimbo and Nick here several weeks back, and then you also have Sam Pittman reviving Arkansas, Mike Leach at Mississippi State. He's always entertaining. Watched his SEC Media Day press conference earlier this morning.
I think the West is going to be fantastic. I think Arkansas is a great story. I love Sam Pittman. I love the way he plays the game. I love the way he coaches. That state is really happy with him. A&M, everybody forgets that they had 4 losses last year. Yeah, they beat, Nick Calzada beat Alabama. Jimbo was just standing on the sideline and basically still lost to Mississippi State the week before. Let's not forget that. They finished 4-4 in the West last year. Let's not forget that, and probably had as good a talent on the field as anybody in the conference, and still went 8-4. So I mean, Texas A&M. I think Will Anderson said at SEC Media Days today that he didn't get into the social media stuff. Doesn't want to talk about Coach Saban and Coach Fisher, but everything will be addressed on October 8th. So I'll leave it at that with A&M. And then in terms of Mississippi State, you've got a team that's got real adults on that team. I mean, they're all seniors. They're a very old team. The quarterback's I guess a junior, but he's only a sophomore. Will Rogers has got another year in that offense. I think Mississippi State's a team you got to watch out for. And then Kiffin's going to be Kiffin. If they find a quarterback, Ole Miss will score a lot of points. So the West is going to be fantastic to watch. I'm not as high on LSU or Auburn. I think Brian Kelly will get it right at LSU. I think Auburn's a disaster with Harsin. I don't think they even want him there. And I think Auburn's got a long way to go. Right now, if you look at what happened last year, the two Tigers were the bottom dwellers of that division last year. And Mississippi State and Arkansas finished in third in that, or tied for third in that conference behind Ole Miss, who was 6-2, and Alabama, who was 7-1. That's what happened last year. Nobody remembers that Mississippi State was better than Texas A&M last year, beat them on the field, and finished to the same record.
JC, that was one question I had for you as far as the SEC. There's so much hype for Jimbo Fisher, and I'm not really Jimbo Fisher, but it comes a time when he won a championship at FSU, but that was 2013.
And he played with a quarterback. That many teams would have suspended. All right, Jameis Winston got on the field because he allowed it to happen, but many folks didn't think Jameis Winston should have been even allowed to play that year, much less in that game. And they won the championship. And, you think of what you want about Jameis Winston, but there could have been plenty of opportunities for anybody to say, no, you're not on the team because of all the shenanigans that he was going through. But Jimbo is one of those guys. He's getting paid, what, $9 million? I mean, he got a raise to go 8-4. He went 8-4 last year. I don't know what he did the year before that. I think he had a pretty good year, 10 or 11-1. And then the year before that wasn't anything special. But because he beat Alabama, Ross Bjork just decided, I'm going to give this guy. They've got money. You talk about money. Texas A&M is printing it. Okay, they are printing it. They have so much in the terms of resources, and that is where it is not fair in a lot of ways. But that's just the way it is. Life is not fair. You get, the only thing you get, the fairs are for pigs with ribbons. I just think that Jimbo, if he does it, he beat Saban, or Calzada beat Saban. But I really think, remember, the 3 years they played Alabama before last year, they got boat raced. All right, Alabama scored over 50 points in every game. They're not, they have to win the West for Texas A&M to arrive, and they haven't done that yet. So we'll see.
Hey, Johnny, what are your thoughts on the fact that Brian Kelly, he arrives in Baton Rouge, he's there for less than 24 hours, and he's got a Southern accent?
Some of his hot videos are just as goofy as his accent. I'm just glad he didn't throw that out there. I kind of wish he had at SEC Media Days. Listen, I think that was look. Scott Woodward wanted a splash hire. That was the name, and that's what Scott Woodward did. He flat out said, "I'm going to go for a splash hire here and get a big name." Brian Kelly, for what it's worth, at Notre Dame, with all the things that impede them from maybe competing with the Ohio States in terms of off the field recruiting and so forth, Notre Dame has played pretty well. I mean, he's gotten to the college football playoff twice, I think, with Brian Kelly, or maybe it was 3 times. I don't know, but he did a good job. And I think at LSU, he's going to have the pick of the litter when it comes to recruiting. The facility there, the school, the alumni, everything you need to win is at LSU, and I can't imagine them not. The West is just flat out ridiculous. I think it's just a crazy good division of football teams. Yeah. It really is.
The Wild Wild West, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you've got really, really good football teams and teams with athletes everywhere. And you look at the recruiting numbers, and I don't know if you guys do this, but you look at all the 4 and 5 stars that go to the SEC, and it's no wonder that the league is successful in the postseason.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, you had a question about the SEC East?
Yeah, no, I was just, Johnny, I was taking a look at the SEC East, and it's interesting when you look at the East. A lot of teams kind of in flux with relatively new or brand new coaches that I see on the rise. I see obviously Georgia is your top dog, if you will, right now. But you see South Carolina year 2 with Shane Beamer.
Very impressive.
You see Tennessee on the up and coming. I really, I'll tell you, I really like Kentucky this year with
Yeah.
Will Levis
Yes.
back at quarterback. I think a lot of potential there. So, and now obviously Napier at Florida. So you see, you have Georgia as a staple, but you see a lot of teams that are on the upswing, if you will.
Yeah, the East will be better. It'll be much more competitive. There were years where you mentioned Treon Harris, McElwain's years at Florida. When they won the East, they had zero chance of competing in the SEC championship game. And that's not the case anymore. You've got Georgia and Kirby Smart, and now you've got these other teams that you just mentioned. I think the East is going to set up to be very competitive as well. The whole league is tremendous. What South Carolina did to Florida last year, my man, that was the most humbling and most impressive butt kicking I saw a South Carolina team administer since Spurrier was there. I mean, Shane Beamer, of all people who coached when Spurrier was there, Shane was around. But what they did physically to Florida on that field with the running game they had, literally no quarterback, and still just steamrolled them. I think South Carolina is somebody you better keep your eye on, because on any given weekend, what do they got to lose? They can come in there and upset you if they don't turn the ball over, and if they can get Spencer Rattler to just be Spencer Rattler and not turn the ball over. Why wouldn't South Carolina be a real headache for you on any given Saturday?
Yeah, that game, with it being in Columbia,
Yeah.
I certainly thought South Carolina had a chance, but I thought it would be
they killed them
20-17 or something like that. And never did I think it would be 45-10 or whatever it ended up being.
It was the worst game of Florida's year last year, in my opinion. I mean, the Florida State game was unwatchable, but at least they won that. The South Carolina game was probably the most embarrassing game Florida played last year, and that sealed Mullen's fate right there. It was over. And in fact, I guess that is when it happened. In fact, it's funny. South Carolina got Muschamp fired too. So it's amazing. South Carolina, I don't know, who are these guys? The Gamecocks. But Beamer has just been tremendous there. They're very happy with him. That fan base is kind of like Tennessee's. If they win or something good happens, you're going to see Gamecock Nation just come out of the floorboard. I mean, they're just going to come out of everywhere. They love their football. They will follow it if it wins.
Yeah, he is a charismatic personality, Shane Beamer. He's always smiling. He's enthusiastic. I think he's the type of guy that these younger players can relate to. I think he's going to do very well there. I really do. I think he's going to have a lot of success. And of course, he's going to play Beamer ball, and nobody ever has a problem with that. So I think he's going to do very well.
They got a quarterback. I mean, they've got somebody now. I mean, Matt, they were playing with a former trainer at one point last year at the quarterback.
That was us.
It's nuts. And they barely beat Vanderbilt. They needed a miracle to beat Vanderbilt at home. It was incredible, the coaching job this kid did. And I just think they should and will likely build upon that this year. And it wouldn't shock me to see them win 8 games. Because I think now with the quarterback, that team will play good, sound, fundamental football. Beamers do that. I mean, Virginia Tech did it for years. Why wouldn't Shane Beamer bring a lot of that disciplined football to his team?
Bubba, I was going to ask a question really quick before we wrap this thing up. I know he has a question too, JC.
Yeah.
You talk about as far as expansion is concerned, it doesn't look like SEC, but have you heard anything about any of the ACC schools? We're hearing a lot of that, a lot being that we're pretty much in the neighborhood of the ACC more than any other conference outside of ours. What are you hearing about that?
Well, what I'm hearing is that it's going to be very difficult and very expensive if somebody wanted to leave that conference with the grant of rights going to 2036. That is crazy to me. The only way an ACC team, I think right now currently, would be able to leave is if there was a consensus amongst league schools, and the presidents would all have to get on board with this to basically say we're going to reorganize everything. They'd have to restructure. They're going to really lose out on this TV contract. When the SEC and the Big Ten sign their new deals, they're going to get probably 2.5 times as much money as what the ACC teams are getting. And this is creating a lot of frustration for Clemson. It's creating a lot of irritation for Miami because now they've hired people to put resources into that program down there, which they didn't do. That was Vanderbilt, and the ACC was Miami, but now it's changed. They're going to start investing in their program. But financially, they're not going to be able to match up with what the SEC and the Big Ten are about to get. And so that could be frustrating. The only way I see This changing for the ACC is if the conference dissolves in some form or fashion. That would require every one of those presidents, and I just can't see that happening. They're in a real tough situation with the grant of rights going out to 2036. I saw numbers upwards of $100 million just to get out of that. I think there would have to be some serious negotiations. You'd have to get lawyers involved. It's a mess, and I know Clemson's frustrated by it. But Clemson and Florida State, I don't know if South Carolina and Florida would really care to have them in the league, and I'm not sure the SEC would want them because that just creates two more divisors for the pot of revenue that would likely have to supersede anything that they would have to pay to get out of that league that they're currently in. So it is a real pickle for those schools right now, and I can't see anything in the next 2 to 3 years at the very minimum happening, Dave, because I think the they basically signed their rights away for until 2036.
Now, JC, a few minutes ago, we talked about different venues within the SEC, but going back to your days as a sports reporter, or just as a fan, just talk about some of the venues you've been to, both in college football and then, maybe I know you're a diehard Yankees fan, maybe some bucket list type venues you've been to, or some that you'd like to check off.
I'd love to go to Scotland and play golf, although I hear right now that the airlines have lost everybody's bags at Heathrow and that it was a nightmare to get to Scotland. So that might have to wait a while. But, Bubba, I have been to Yankee Stadium. I've been able to go to just about every college football stadium I can think of right now. I'd love to go to the Horseshoe in Ohio State. I think I'd like to see a game in the snow in Michigan. And I think I'd probably like to go somewhere, like Notre Dame, just to see Touchdown Jesus. That would be something that I would like to mark off the list. But it's one of those things where one of these days you're just going to get up and go somewhere. And we went to the Harvard-Yale game 10 years ago. I did with a bunch of friends. And that was one of the best experiences I'd ever had because of just everything about how different it was, what it meant to those kids who played. They literally walked in their uniforms from the dorm to the stadium, played football. Remember, they don't get scholarships in the Ivy, and then walked from the stadium after the game. Harvard won it 35-28 or 28-21, I don't remember. And then from the stadium, they walked back to the dorms to study. It's just a different world. And so I got to experience a stadium that was built in the 19th century in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that was kind of cool. And I think, though, I would like to go see a game at Ohio State, Michigan, or Notre Dame. I think the Big Ten just drips of college, collegiate aura, and cold weather, and just stuff like that fans, I'd like to see how they tailgate. And I've seen everything in the SEC, and it's the best by far. But it's hot, man. September and October are hot as hell, and that could be a good thing when you look at the scenery. But what I will tell you is that the games in November and December up in the north would be something to behold. And I think when Oklahoma joins the SEC in 3 years, going to Norman, Oklahoma could be really cool in November. Something like that.
You bring up the Horseshoe. That is one venue I was blessed to be able to visit back when I was 9 years old. I guess Kirk Herbstreit was not the starter then, but he was on that team. Yeah. And then also in 1998, I guess my junior year of high school. So that was awesome. We had a friend that worked for Owens Corning there in Columbus. So he had tremendous season tickets there at the 50-yard line.
Yeah, I mean, they get going. The only problem with some of these Big Ten games is that damn Fox Network big noon. I mean, nobody wants to go to these noon games unless you're working in the media. Texas right now, this is funny. I know we're about to wrap it up, but Texas is dying in Austin because they have to play out. They get to play Alabama, and they get to play them at 11 o'clock in the damn morning. Nobody's going to be ready for that, and they're going to be half asleep, and it's going to be awful. It's going to be hotter than hell, and it's like the restaurants are pissed, and nobody's happy in Austin right now because Alabama's coming to town, and they're not going to be able to take advantage of it on the revenue side, at least on that Saturday, and it's killing them right now because of that. And then, of course, they play Oklahoma at the same time at the fair. They go to that Cotton Bowl, and they play Oklahoma at 11 o'clock in the morning. Their two biggest games are before noon. That stinks. That's not the atmosphere that college fans want. I don't think that's what business is like, but TV drives everything, and that's just the way it goes. Too bad.
But, hopefully, Johnny, you'll have it on your bucket list to come to Dowdy Ficklin.
I'd love to, man. Hey, Bubba, get me up there. I'll come up there. I mean, I don't mind driving up 95. Get me in the place. I'll come up there. I'll just come up 95. And stop in Greenville. What's that about? It's probably about 6, 7 hours. I would say it's probably, is that near Fayetteville or is Fayetteville close by?
We're an hour and a half from Fayetteville.
Okay, so north of Fayetteville. So Yeah.
Hey, you and the missus, y'all can make it a nice weekend. Go over to Atlantic Beach, Morehead City.
I'm all about it, Bubba. Let's make something happen. Let's make something happen.
I'll tell you, Johnny, really quick.
We got BYU coming to town here in the next couple years.
There you go.
Really quick, I brought a bunch of Gators into Greenville, North Carolina, to see a Pirates NC State game, and we're always selling. We love the program, so we're proud of it. And I'll tell you, they were blown away by what we have here. And I often refer to it as the best kept secret on the East Coast. I really do.
Listen, that baseball regional, super regional you had with Texas got most of the attention from at least me, because everything out in the outfield that was going on behind the fence and the crowd, I cannot understand how they didn't win that super regional. I know you guys have already talked about this ad nauseum, but I was really disappointed when Texas won that. And I just was really excited for the Pirate Nation, because East Carolina is one of those schools where when something, it could just really explode in attention, because I felt like the atmosphere at East Carolina for that super regional was as good as it was in any other super regional venue, and including Tennessee, including Oregon State and some of the other schools. East Carolina showed up. They loved their Pirates, and I don't know how they couldn't pull that off, and it was really kind of sad.
Yeah.
I mean, I know North Carolina lost too, but gee whiz, East Carolina really could have made a splash, and maybe they will next year. Who knows? I don't know what kind of team you're going to have next year on the diamond, but I love the baseball. We reload
every year. Thanks.
Not to get off on a tangent, but talking about the future of the program, Pirate fans, most have heard this, but Cliff Godwin signed an extension through 2029. So, and also the exact terms I don't believe have been released, because Coach had been across the pond in the Netherlands with the USA collegiate team, but I believe it's going to be right around $600,000 guaranteed. So a heck of a deal for Cliff Godwin, and that's far and away the most anybody in the American, and it's going to rank right up there nationally, probably with about most schools outside of the SEC.
I'm going to get myself a Pirates hat and wear it on the morning show I do with Shane. I am. I'm going to get me a damn Pirates hat.
We got one like I have there. Doesn't say East Carolina on it, but I'll get you one of those as well as a Pirate hat.
Well, it has to be a 47 brand. I'm going to get me an ECU, or I might get that Pirate guy with the hat. I'm going to get something. I'm going to wear that purple hat, and I want it to be purple, and I'm going to get that hat and put it on. And Shane's going to go, JC, dude, what's with the East Carolina hat? And I'm going to say, hey, man, Pirates.
Sounds like Kyle.
They're cool. I like them. So, hey, you guys, man, this has been really fun. I really am grateful to come on and enjoy this last hour with you guys, and maybe we can do it again when the season starts.
Sure thing. We want to promote the podcast.
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, although we're taking a couple Wednesdays off, but I'll be on Friday morning, 8 to 9 a.m. With Shane Matthews, former Florida quarterback, Chicago Bear quarterback, Carolina Panther quarterback. And we will get cranking. I come on 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 8 o'clock. Facebook Live, YouTube, all the Spotify, everything. And football is coming, and we are really getting close. It's just over a month away, and I'm ready.
JC, man, thank you so much. I
appreciate
the time.
Hope you Thank you, Johnny. Great to meet you.
Thanks, Matt. Great meeting you guys.
You too. Right. Take care, my friend.
Go Pirates. All right.
Bye-bye. Great stuff there from Johnny. Appreciate JC. And definitely Bubba's the reason why I found out about that show, Matt, and Shane Matthews. Those guys do a great job with the show. And guys, I'm just fired up. I know we're about to go, but I'm just so fired up. I was thinking about that today. Thank you, JG. Johnny Gardner says boost for staff as well. Very important. I was there at the stadium today, and my son Alexander's there at camp, and he's just it's just so great. He's the class of 31, so he wants to play so bad for Cliff Godwin. And in fact, he's like, literally, he was 3 points away from having straight A's like most of the year. And I told him, he asked me, what would he do? Like, how can I play? And I said, the only way you can play for Coach Godwin is if you have straight A's. So he's doing very well in the classroom, and that camp. By the way, guys, that camp is I've been around, sports for a long time like you guys, and I'm more familiar with baseball, obviously, in basketball than football camps. But that camp is really, really good. A lot of great players that we're really happy that you guys. My son learned how to bunt today from Lane Hoover, and he was so
Wow.
excited about that today. That was one of the first things as I'm driving home from Greenville today. He was telling me how explaining the different. I didn't know he knew anything about a bunt, but explaining different bunts and how you do it. And he said, "Dad, here's the sign that they give for to bunt," and he was just jacked up. So kudos to CG23, the baseball camp. If you haven't signed your kid up, grandkid, whatever, I highly recommend it. I'm one of these sports camps nerds. I love them. There's something special about them in the summertime. And you have a kid like him who he was even practicing in the backyard tonight, Matt, before we did our show. He loves sports that much. So, yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
Just the fact that I want to give a shout out to them by make sure that you, if you definitely haven't done it, make sure you do it next year for your kids or grandkids. It's well worth the money and the time.
Yeah, and going back to what Johnny Gardner was saying as far as the boost for the staff, it was reported, VCU's coach, moved on to Notre Dame, Stifler.
Yeah.
So when that change happened, I was thinking, well, VCU's next coach is going to be Jeff Palumbo, and from everything we heard, he was top on the list for the Rams, but VCU met with him and he elected to remain in Greenville. So that's awesome because, as Cliff Godwin has said time and again, and as you've heard others say, Jeff Palumbo, recruiting coordinator, is tremendous at what he does, both on and off the field, and nothing but an asset for the ECU program.
And maybe sometime we get him on the show. We've had so many former baseball players and people that know him that really love him. And that speaks a lot, when you're in the baseball community, just like it was football, basketball, whatever. And when you have somebody, your peers, your colleagues saying how great you are, I listen to that and I respect that. And I'm a huge fan of Palumbo and really Malcolm Gray, the whole staff there. I love the program and baseball wise. I tell you what, guys, sad to lose Zach Agnos today, Bubba. I know you told us about that. But guys, on the flip side of that, very happy for the dude. Thank you to the Agnos family. You have Jake and Zach. We could have not had the Agnoses in Greenville. How about the fact that tells you how great our program is? Same if it was the NFL for our football program. When we have guys drafted, that's a special thing. So really happy for that. I didn't see that coming, to be honest. No offense to Zach. I wasn't expecting that. I thought he was going to be back, but I'm happy for him personally, And the great thing about this program is we're going to keep going.
Yeah, congratulations to Carson Wisenhunt as well. It's well documented. No need to rehash everything that went on there, but congratulations to Carson going in the late second round to the San Francisco Giants, and we'll see how much he signs for. You also had you mentioned Zach Agnos going in the 10th round of the Colorado Rockies as a pitcher, and he signed for 150 or 160,000. And then you also had incoming shortstop and pitcher from West Forsyth in Clemens, just outside of Winston-Salem, Peyton Martin. And Peyton elected to sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers after going in the, I think, 17th round, and he signed for something like 215,000.
Yeah, and it's when you look at this, fellas, you think about Agnos moving on, and congratulations to him. He's an awesome player. I wish him the best of luck. But it does kind of highlight, where we are as a program, and it puts a lot of pressure, I'm sure, on Cliff Godwin and the staff because you have the success, obviously, right? But you're also, because of the success, now you're losing players like Agnos to the draft, so it puts you in a situation where you have to rebuild really quickly. You look at, obviously, Ryder Giles, departing the program, Agnos now departing the program, and it puts, Godwin in a situation now where he's going to have to, bring people up quickly. So certainly congratulations to him, but it does put a lot of stress, I think, on the program.
Mark Callaway brings up Bryson Worrell, obviously a unbelievable 2022 for Bryson. I knew that he would not go very early, or at least I thought that, just based on how it typically works with him being an older guy who had that additional COVID year that he elected to use. Coach Godwin mentioned on multiple occasions that he had the opportunity to go for about 20 or 25,000 last year, and fortunately decided to come back and had history-making season, one of the best individual seasons in East Carolina baseball history, and that's saying something. But Bryson was not drafted. I'm sure he'll sign with someone, but I did think he would go in the later rounds, like Mark mentioned.
Yeah, that was a real shocker. I was waiting for that. It didn't happen. And the draft, guys, as you know, no matter what draft it is very tricky, funny. When I say funny, ironic, and the fact that you have a guy like that, a proven commodity. I mean, you saw him on. It's not like this is some dude from a college you've never heard of, and like a diamond in the rough. I mean, he was a very big factor in why East Carolina went to the Super Regional and the turnaround that they had. And a local kid from Sims, North Carolina, right outside of Wilson, for people to know it. And so it was a great story for him. And I don't think his days of playing baseball are over. And sometimes you wonder if a kid like him.
I think we had a cat malfunction here, Bubba.
Hey, like Coach Mack said, Matt, you weren't taking part in that episode, I don't believe, with Coach Mack, and neither was I. I was strictly producing. But Coach Mack, when Dave's cat jumped into the picture there, and now Dave's back as me. But for our viewers there, you see double Bubba on the screen. But Dave's cat jumped on the back of his chair, and it was hilarious. Coach Mack said, "Oh, Dave, a little feline action there."
I think Dave's got the cat from Pet Cemetery. Remember that cat that came back? Came back as like a Dave. Do you have the cat from Pet Cemetery?
It was the craziest thing. So I'm talking to you guys, right?
Hey, Dave, sign out and back in. You have terrible feedback. Go ahead, Matt.
All right. I was just drawing a comparison. Dave's crazy cat there. Hey, really, Bubba, really quick, changing topics for 1 second. I just want to make a note because we talked a lot about conference expansion over the last few weeks. Notre Dame is obviously, and I'm just going to make this point really quick, hopping back to this. One of the teams that you and we had talked about, do they want to go to the Big Ten? Do they want to remain independent? I think it's pretty clear after this week. Their hope is to remain independent. They currently have a $22 million annual deal with NBC to broadcast their games. This week, they reached out to NBC. They're trying to negotiate a new get this, fellas, $75 million per year to have the rights to, for NBC to have the rights to Notre Dame football. So that does answer a lot of questions. Their wish is to remain independent if they can. They're definitely going to get NBC is going to come back with an offer, I'm sure, to keep them. Can they get to $75 million? I don't think that's going to happen personally. Maybe it will. Who knows? But maybe they meet in the middle. But I think that's a clear indication that Notre Dame's goal is to stay independent. So I just wanted to mention that really quick. All the talk about conference expansion.
No
yeah,
doubt.
that's an excellent point. Go ahead, Dave, if you had a thought on the Notre Dame situation.
Yeah, I was just going to say, guys, I just don't see, until I've said this before, until they're told at Notre Dame that the only way that you're going to make the playoff is if you're in a conference, they're going to do. And look, I will tell you this: Sankey does not want Notre Dame to go in the Big Ten. He has an ally with Notre Dame right now. That it's an interesting situation that you wouldn't think, but he does not want that brand of Notre Dame to go in the Big Ten. As crazy as that may sound, geographically, of course, it makes sense for them to go in the Big Ten. But guys, I didn't know this, but I heard this on the radio a week or so ago, that Notre Dame, outside of the Ivy League, I think they're behind Stanford. They're like number 3 as far as their endowment, and their alums are saying, we don't want a conference. And so imagine if you have like the number 3 endowment outside of the Ivy League, and those guys, those ladies are saying, We don't want a conference, and they pull their money. Now, I understand that the conference of having the Big Ten money or the SEC money is like $100 million a year. But what if you're to them right now? They're making probably that right now. I mean, they've got a lot of money at Notre Dame, and it's not the Notre Dame that Matt and I grew up with and Bubba when you were in grade school, for sure. But as far as the brand, going back to your point with NBC, I think they did it on purpose, Matt. I think they know they're not going to get $75 million. You're a sales guy. I think they did that. They highballed it. It's a low ball. And if you start, it's like
for sure. Again,
if you have like 35 mil, if you say 35 mil, then NBC can say 25 mil. So if you start at 75, you're going way high on purpose, because what if NBC says they'll take 75 mil?
You know, right? Absolutely.
They could say that. I don't think they will. I think if I had it, I would probably say 50 mil, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't think it's going to be 75, but like you said, it's probably worth way less than 50. But I think the brand of Notre Dame, not for the as far as the relevancy of, are they in the national championship every year? But they have been in there, as JC was alluding to earlier with Brian Kelly. And I think we'll see how they do recruiting wise, but it's very difficult for Notre Dame to be getting players to equal that of the SEC, or even maybe a little bit of the Big Ten, when their academic standards, I couldn't even probably travel into South Bend. They would say, "Sir, you're not welcome. Well, let me look at your passport to get into South Bend." I wouldn't be able to get anywhere close to Notre Dame. I know how to spell Notre Dame, and that's about it. And I'm lucky to know how to spell Notre Dame, but I don't see, until, like I said, until they're pushed and pulled and dragged into a conference. I don't see that happening. I really don't.
Yeah, agreed for sure, Dave.
Something else to note very quickly on the NIL front, before I had another couple Pirate notes, but on the NIL front, I know I shared this with you guys, and it wasn't surprising, but this is just an example. And this isn't Oklahoma or Texas. This is Texas Tech. Obviously, 85 scholarships with FBS football, and then a lot of walk-ons. So they've agreed to pay $25,000 to each one of those 85 scholarship players, and $25,000 to the top 15 walk-ons. And they said it's also going to be headed that direction for men's basketball and baseball. So that's, and not to get off on a tangent, but that brings up a whole nother variable with NIL and Title IX, because it won't be long if it goes men's basketball, baseball, that the women's side of things is going to be kind of making a fuss and saying why aren't we included in on this?
That's a great point. Honestly, I didn't even think of that, Bubba. I think that's a really good point. And man, the one thing that just jumps out to me when you were talking about that is life is good for these college kids. Wow. I mean, do you know what I felt? I'm sure we can all agree on this. $25,000 as a college athlete. I mean, good Lord. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I could have done a lot with that money when I was in college, for sure. So not bad at all, fellas.
No, it's not. I'll tell you what, I'm just frustrated with the whole thing, Matt. I know, because you are and I from the 90s, but you got a scholarship. I have no problem with the cost of attendance, that sort of thing. I don't agree that somebody couldn't have a job. I think that's ridiculous. The schedule that you guys do, is you and Bubba, like with college athletes, student athletes, if you will, is ridiculous how hard you have to work out, all the classes, everything. My concern is, guys, I really truly believe this, the way our society, and I promise, Bubba, I'm not going to get off on a tangent. I really believe that we're in a society now that you don't have to work hard anymore to get to where you want to go. And what I mean by that is, if you want to go to the National Football League, you had to work your tail off, and it was like a huge goal, kind of like if you're trying to climb Mount Everest, right? Well, now, you can get paid now. It's okay. You don't have to go to the pros anymore. It's totally ridiculous. I really think that I have no issues, like I've said before, guys, of players getting paid. I'm not one of these anti-paid guys, but for a player to basically be a pro and they don't even have to earn it to be a pro is the way our society is now. You don't have to, hell, you don't even have to work anymore. People don't have to work anymore in our society. So, and I'll leave it at that. But when we're all working hard, it really hurts when you see people that are not working. But we're not the political objective or the social objective. We're the sports objective. So, Bubba, my friend, I know we've gone way long tonight, but you guys are awesome. And Bubba, thank you. I don't thank you enough. I want to thank you publicly on air for all that you do for us. A great show again, a great guest, and appreciate all your hard work.
Well, I appreciate that, Dave. Definitely enjoy talking sports, and specifically East Carolina sports. But very quickly before we go, since those 3 letters NIL came up, give Johnny Gardner credit here because I have not had the opportunity to listen to it yet. I'm going to check it out after the show. But check out 94.3 The Game's conversation today with Vern Davenport. He's heading up the Team Boneyard initiative, with the collective. And Johnny said that was a very good and informative interview. A lot of folks had some questions there on the various message boards and so forth because the while the website initially didn't include a lot of Q&As or any Q&As, that has since improved, and Vern addressed a lot of those things, and that interview answers a lot of folks' questions.
All right, I'm looking forward to that, and maybe we can get someone on about that topic as well. Thanks to JC. Appreciate him coming on. Matt, thank you so much, buddy. Great to see you.
Thanks, fellas.
Enjoyed it, Bubba. Thank you so much. And I know Kyle's a little bit under the weather, and we send a shout out to him tonight and get better. I know he's on injury reserve tonight, so we appreciate him very much as well. All right, appreciate all of you. Can't wait for football season. By the way, get your season tickets, 1-800-DIAL-ECU. You go to ecpirates.com. Until next time, you've been watching and listening to the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody. Go Pirates.
My heart is purple and gold.